All living things are made up of one or more cells. A cell is the smallest unit that can carry on all of the processes of life. The compound microscope was invented in 1595. Cells were not discovered until 1665 when Robert Hooke used a compound microscope to view a thin slice of cork. He called the thousands of tiny, empty chambers cells because they reminded him of the room that monks lived in. In 1674, Anton van Leeuwenhoek used a single-lens microscope to observe living cells. He was the first to observe bacteria in pond water. Soon after the discovery of cells, it was quite apparent that cells were the basic unit of life. Over the next 190 years, German scientists gathered data to formulate the cell theory. In 1838, Matthias Schleiden found that all plants are made of cells. In 1839, Theodor Schwann found that all animals are made of cells. In 1855, Rudolf Virchow observed that new cells could only be produced from the division of existing cells. The cell theory states that all living things are composed of cells. Cells are the basic units in structure and function in living things. New cells are produced from existing cells. The cellular basis of life. All living things are made of organized parts, obtain energy from their surroundings, perform chemical reactions, change with time, respond to their environment, and reproduce. Cell size is limited by the cell's surface area to volume area. Surface area is length times width times number of sides. Volume is length times width times height. The surface area of a cell determines the rate at which it can move substances across it. As the cell grows, its volume increases at a faster rate than its surface area. This is why cells are small, in order to keep the surface area to volume ratio high enough to meet the cell's requirements for nutrient intake and waste removal. There are two basic types of cells. Prokaryotes. Prokaryote cells lack a nucleus and a membrane-bound organelles. And then there's eukaryotes. Eukaryote cells have a nucleus and membrane-bound organelles. Prokaryotic cells include bacteria, which is categorized by shape. If it is rod-shaped, it is a bacillus. If it's spherical-shaped, it's a coccus. If it's spiral and rigid, it is sporula. But if it is flexible, it is called spirochetes. The cell envelope includes a plasma membrane, which is a phospholipid bilayer with embedded proteins, a cell wall, which helps maintain the shape, and glycocalyx, which is a gel-like layer. If it's compact, it is called the capsule. If it's diffuse, it's called the slime layer. The cytoplasm includes DNA located in the region called the nucleoid. Many bacteria have an extra chromosomal piece of circular DNA called a plasmid. There are thousands of ribosomes in the cytoplasm, which are used to make proteins. Prokaryotic ribosomes are smaller than eukaryotic ribosomes. Appendages. One type of appendage is a flagella. Some bacteria are mobile, the fimbriae, which are not used for locomotion, but to attach bacteria to a surface. Then there are conjunction pili, which are rigid tubular structures used by bacteria to pass DNA from cell to cell. Then there are eukaryotic cells. The three basic parts of a cell are the plasma membrane, the cytoplasm, and the nucleus. The plasma membrane is the cell's outer boundary. It covers the cell surface and acts as a semi-permeable barrier between the inside and the outside of a cell. The cytoplasm includes the contents of the cell from the plasma membrane to the nucleus. This includes the fluid called cytosol, the cytoskeleton, and all of the organelles except the nucleus. The nucleus is a membrane-bound organelle that contains a cell's DNA. Membrane lipids are cell membranes that consist of a phospholipid bilayer. Cell membranes often contain proteins embedded within the phospholipid bilayer. The fluid mosaic model states that a phospholipid bilayer behaves more like a fluid than a solid. The membrane proteins float around in a sea of phospholipids. The nucleus. The nucleus directs the cell's activities and stores DNA. Nuclear envelope. The nucleus is surrounded by a double membrane called the nuclear envelope. The nucleolus is the place where DNA is concentrated when it is in the process of making ribosomal RNA. Mitochondria harvest energy from organic compounds and transfer to ATP. Mitochondria are double membrane organelles. The outer membrane separates the mitochondrion from the cytosol. The inner membrane contains many folds called cristae, which form the mitochondrial matrix. These folds contain enzymes that generate ATP. Active cells with large energy requirements will contain many mitochondria. Less active cells, such as fat storage cells, have few mitochondria. Ribosomes. Ribosomes are either free or attached to the rough endoplasmic reticulum and play a role in protein synthesis. The endoplasmic reticulum. The endoplasmic reticulum, ER, is a system of membranous sacs called cisternae. These cisternae act as a highway transporting supplies from one part of the cell to another. There are two types of ER. The rough ER is studded with ribosomes. The smooth ER is free from ribosomes. The rough ER prepares proteins for export or insertion into the cell membrane. The smooth ER builds lipids and participates in detoxification of toxins. The Golgi apparatus. The Golgi apparatus is the packaging and distribution center. It receives proteins and lipids from the endoplasmic reticulum. It labels the molecules made in the ER with tags that specify their destination. It releases molecules in vesicles, which then may be transported to another organelle or out of the cell through exocytosis. Vesicles. Vesicles, including lysosomes, which are digestive enzymes, and peroxisomes, which are detoxification enzymes, are classified by their contents. Protein synthesis. The rough ER, Golgi apparatus, and vesicles work together to transport proteins to their destinations inside and outside the cell. The cytoskeleton is made of protein fibers that help cells move and maintain their shape. The cytoskeleton includes microtubules, microfilaments, and intermediate filaments. Cilia and flagella are hair-like structures that extend from the surface of the cell where they assist in movement. Cilia are shorter, quite numerous, and packaged in tight rows. Cilia assist in moving substances over the cell surface if it is attached. If the cell is free and in water, the cilia can propel the cell, paramecium. Flagella are longer and far less numerous. They can assist in movement of the cell. Centrioles consist of two short cylinders of microtubules at right angles to each other and are involved in cell division. They are found only in animal cells and help to organize microtubules in the cell, such as spindle fibers that separate chromosomes during cell division. Plant cells have cell walls, central vacuoles, and plastids. Cell wall. In plant cells, a rigid cell wall covers the cell membrane and provides support and protection. The cell wall contains cellulose and proteins. The The primary cell wall grows with the cell, the secondary cell wall. Some plants have this. When the cell stops growing, it secretes the secondary cell wall. It is very strong, but can no longer expand. The central vacuole. Large central vacuoles store water, enzymes, and waste products and provide support for plant tissue. A plant cell's central vacuole can make up 90% of the cell's volume. During times of drought, the vacuole loses water, the cells shrink, and the plant wilts. Plastids. Plastids store starch and pigments. The chloroplast converts light energy into chemical energy by photosynthesis. Chromoplasts contain colorful pigments and may or may not take part in photosynthesis. Chromoplasts in carrots contain orange pigment called carotene. Chloroplasts. Chloroplasts contain thylakoids, a system of flattened membranous sacs. Thylakoids contain chlorophyll, a green pigment that captures light energy for the cell. Chloroplasts, like mitochondria, also contain their own DNA, separate from the plant cell. Comparing cells. Prokaryotes, animal cells, and plant cells can be distinguished from each other by their unique features.